Hello and a very warm welcome to this new video. Yes, Iran has been attacked and quite a lot is happening in the Middle East, which will naturally have a very significant impact on the oil price. But we will discuss in great detail what potential impacts this could truly have when the oil price might actually climb to $100, and what I then believe if the overall situation also calms down relatively quickly again, why all of that could then also quite swiftly simply vanish into thin air concerning the oil price. Before we start, of course, the usual risk disclaimer. Everything I say cannot be bought or sold. It's not financial advice, but merely my own opinion. So let's dive right in and take a look at the oil price here. This now, of course, Israel and the US have attacked Iran, and quite a bit is happening now. And the question, of course, is what's currently moving the market or the stock exchange in general? To what extent will the conflict escalate further? Because we've already seen in recent weeks that oil prices have been steadily rising, even though we are actually structurally in an oversupply situation. And that was precisely the risk the market had already factored in, that an escalation could indeed happen here. And we have now witnessed that very thing. And so naturally, the crucial question now presents itself: to what extent does this current situation impact the global oil price, and how significantly can the oil price then potentially increase? For it's not at all a given that we should expect to see high oil prices for a long time here. I actually believe that this all hinges on one crucial factor, and that is precisely the Strait of Hormuz, because the Strait of Hormuz is extremely important here, as 20 million barrels daily are transported through here by ships or by seafarers. And that accounts for roughly 20% of the world's entire oil consumption. And if this Strait of Hormuz is no longer passable, then we would certainly see significant problems emerge in the global oil market. And then it could actually lead to a situation where, especially concerning Brent crude, but also WTI crude, we could see prices rise towards $100. I think that this Monday we'll already see a small short-term spike, a small increase in the oil price of I'd say a few percent, maybe 5% or so, and depending on what happens with this Strait of Hormuz, that will be pivotal for the direction it takes. But of course, we mustn't forget that OPEC has, I believe it was today, on Sunday, announced that they will raise production by or over 206,000 barrels per day. Yes, that naturally tends to put downward pressure on the oil price. This means if we see a relatively quick easing of tensions here and the Strait of Hormuz is not adversely affected, that the oil price here also tends not to increase towards the $100 mark. Well, as soon as the entire situation calms down, I actually believe that we will quite quickly return to that old initial level, because fundamentally nothing has changed regarding this overproduction. Iran is indeed a relatively large oil producer, but that can be compensated for by other oil producing countries. Yes, the USA perhaps not without reason got involved accordingly with Venezuela here, quote unquote. And yes, that is why I truly believe that depending on exactly how long the conflict in Iran continues to burn, and to what extent the situation, the oil market is currently under pressure due to the Strait of Hormuz. And the crucial question then becomes whether the oil price will indeed rise towards $100 and remain at that level, or if we might relatively quickly see a significant sell-off once again. And that's why you should be a little cautious about oil stocks, because they are currently profiting quite well from this trend. Clearly, when oil prices rise, companies are making significantly better money again. We see this with various stocks. Chevron, for example, has broken out of its consolidation formation and is on its way to new all-time highs. I think we'll see new all-time highs if we continue to see rising oil prices. But I believe that we will tend to fall back into the range of under $170 here if the situation calms down relatively quickly again, or rather doesn't escalate to the point that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked or, becomes difficult to navigate. So if all of that remains intact, I believe we'll see a normalization in oil stocks relatively quickly again. That's why I'd be a little cautious if someone were to say, this is now completely escalating. Clearly, that could also happen. I mean, the risk of a regional conflagration is certainly present. But given that the government's supreme leadership in Iran has already been eliminated, it's naturally quite difficult to assess the situation. I'm not an expert on Eastern affairs, but my gut feeling would actually tell me that this conflict won't last for very long. I'm curious to see. Well, that's just something you have to keep in mind, that you stay on the ball here and keep an eye on these stocks. Yes, with ExxonMobil, we're also seeing a very, very strong breakout here past this consolidation phase from $120 to over $150. And that, I believe, is also a bit dangerous for investors who now think, oh, I'll still profit from this because a lot has already been priced in. Here at ExxonMobil, we can see that the stock's movement in recent weeks already suggested that it's being assumed the whole situation will escalate. And if we look at Occidental Petroleum, they also reacted not quite as strongly as the other stocks, but they are also on their way up, similar to how European stocks like Total Energies are heading towards an all-time high. Yes, the breakout was successful here too, or Equinor, also a strong breakout above this downtrend. So oil stocks in general are holding up quite well, or rather they're performing really strongly right now, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. And that's why for me, the risk-reward ratio at the current level isn't really justified. Or if I actually decide to do so, I'm not sure yet if I'll enter the oil market. Then I'll be checking it almost hourly, or I'll set a very, very tight stop loss so that I don't miss out or make any mistakes. That was the brief update, my thoughts and my assessment of the oil price and what potential impacts we might see there due to the Iran conflict. A big thank you to all the channel members, and I hope that we'll see each other again in one of the upcoming videos. Until then, I wish you all the very best, much success, and ciao.